Hi everyone. Hope you are in the best of your health. I'm Kapila again, and today we'll take up the chapter A Question of Trust, written by Victor Cannings. Victor Cannings was an English novelist and writer. He wrote thrillers and novels and stories, and his thrillers are famous for their romance, mystery, and unexpected thrilling ends. This story here, A Question of Trust, is about two thieves who go to a house at Shotover Grange. Horace Denby is one of them, and this Horace Denby is a good thief. Good thief in the sense that he commits the act of theft only once a year, and that also at the place of a very rich person. He doesn't harm anyone. He takes the money just to buy some rare expensive books, and he only takes that amount of money that is okay to last for the whole year. So that way he's a good thief. And he comes face to face to another thief there at that house. And then what happens, that's the story about. So let's begin with the story. Everyone thought that Horace Denby was a good, honest citizen. He was about 50 years old and unmarried, and he lived with a housekeeper who worried over his health. In fact, he was usually very well and happy, except for attacks of hay fever in summer. So hay fever is the allergy that you have there in summers because of the pollens and some sort of, smells that come out of the flowers during summer season. He made locks and was successful enough at his business to have two helpers. Yes, Horace Denby was good and respectable, but not completely honest. That we all know because he was a thief. So he was 50 years of age and he made locks and he was flourishing, he was thriving happily, and he had two helpers also along with a housemaid. 15 years ago, Horace had served his first and only sentence in a prison library. He loved rare, expensive books. So he robbed a safe every year. Each year he planned carefully just what he would do, stole enough to last for 12 months, and secretly bought the books he loved through an agent. So this is the reason why he used to steal. What he used to do? Steal just once in a year. Why he stole? Because 15 years back he had been prisoned in a prison library. So there he must have got addicted to read books. So he was in love of rare and expensive books, and he started committing the act of theft once a year so that the money could last for 12 months, and he used to buy the books, rare and expensive ones, through an agent. Now, walking in the bright July sunshine, he felt sure that this year's robbery was going to be as successful as all the others. For 2 weeks, he had been studying the house at Shotover Grange. So there was a house at the place called Shotover Grange. Shotover Grange is the name of the place where that house was. Looking at its rooms, its electric wiring, its path, and its garden. So he used to do a very detailed study of the place where he was about to commit the act of theft. Everything he would study, and then he would go to commit the act of theft. This afternoon, the two servants who remained in the Grange while the family was in London had gone to the movies. Horace saw them go, and he felt happy in spite of a little tickle of hay fever in his nose. He came out from behind the garden wall, his tools carefully packed in a bag on his back. So the owners were not there, and the servants who were there, they also had gone for the movies. So in spite of having that little bit of hay fever and the tickling in the nose, he still went with the bag of tools toward the house. There were about £15,000 worth of jewels in the Grange safe that he had come to know through the study of the house. He had studied the house very closely. If he sold them one by one, he expected to get at least 5,000, enough to make him happy for another year. There were 3 very interesting books coming up for the sale in the autumn. Now he would get the money he wanted to buy them. So this is why he wanted to go there. He had seen the housekeeper hang the key to the kitchen door on a hook outside. He put on a pair of gloves, took the key and opened the door. He was always careful not to leave any fingerprints. So he was a good thief in that manner, that he would not leave any fingerprints behind after doing the act of theft. A small dog was lying in the kitchen. It stirred, made a noise and moved its tail in a friendly way. "All right, Sherry," Horace said as he passed. "All you had to do to keep dogs quiet was to call them by the right names and show them love." So he had studied that also, how to keep the dogs calm and how to make friends with them. So how to make friends with them? By calling the right name and showing them little love. The safe was in the drawing room, behind a rather poor painting. Horace wondered for a moment whether he should collect pictures instead of books. But they took up too much room. What is they took up too much room? That is, they required a lot of place. Paintings are big, so they need a lot of place. So that is why he thought, no, books are only better, because the painting was so beautiful that once though he had that idea in the mind that why should I not start collecting the paintings. In a small house, books were better. There was a great bowl of flowers on the table and Horace felt his nose tickle. He gave a little sneeze and then put down his bag. He carefully arranged his tools. He had 4 hours before the servants returned. The safe was not going to be hard to open. After all, he had lived with locks and safes all the life. The burglar alarm was poorly built. He went into the hall to cut its wire. He came back and sneezed loudly as the smell of the flowers came to him again. So we all know he suffered from hay fever, and because of the bowl of flowers that was lying there, he again sneezed. And how he went there, he knew that the burglar's alarm, he could cut the wire because he had worked all his life with locks and safes only. How foolish people are when they own valuable things, Horace thought. A magazine article had described this house, giving a plan of all the rooms and a picture of this room. The writer had even mentioned about the painting hid a safe. So all the information about that house he had got through a magazine. But Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. He buried his face in his handkerchief. Then he heard a voice say from the doorway, "What is it, a cold or hay fever?" Before he could think, Horace said, "Hay fever," and found himself sneezing again. So he put that handkerchief so that he may not have the smell of the flowers, and he sneezed, and again he sneezed, and he heard a voice asking him if it was hay fever or it was something else. The voice went on, "You can cure it with a special treatment, you know, if you find out just what plant gives you the disease. I think you'd better see a doctor if you're serious about your work. I heard you from the top of the house just now." So it was the voice that asked him if it was cold or hay fever, and he was taken aback, he was surprised, he did not know, and with an impulse he answered hay fever. He didn't have time to think anything. He answered it was hay fever, and to which a suggestion was given by the lady whose voice was giving that question, whose voice had asked that question, and the suggestion was to consult a doctor and find out which plant gave him this allergy. It was a quiet, kindly voice, but one with firmness in it. A woman was standing in the doorway, and Sherry was rubbing against her. She was young, quite pretty, and was dressed in red. She walked to the fireplace and straightened the ornaments there. So the lady now comes in the scene, and she was pretty, dressed well, and Sherry the dog also was rubbing against her as if he knew her. "Down, Sherry," she said. "Anyone would think I'd been away for a month." She smiled at Horace and went on. "However, I came back just in time, though I didn't expect to meet a burglar." So obviously, Horace was able to understand that she was the mistress, because she said people would think she was out, but she had come back in time and she wasn't expecting to see a burglar at home. Horace had some hope because she seemed to be amused at meeting him. He might avoid trouble if he treated her the right way. He replied, I didn't expect to meet one of the family. So obviously he understood that she was the mistress of the family or one of the family members, but inside he was hopeful also because she wasn't that angry. So he understood that if he would behave in a right manner to this lady, then definitely he would be saved. So he replied in very calmly and in a very mannerly way. She nodded. I see what an inconvenience it is for you to meet me. What are you going to do? Horace said, my first thought was to run. Of course, you could do that, but I would telephone the police and tell them all about you. They'd get you at once. So obviously, anyone would do the same. Horace said, I would, of course, cut the telephone wires first, and then he hesitated, a smile on his face. I would make sure that you could do nothing for some time. A few hours would be enough. She looked at him seriously. You'd hurt me. Horace paused and then said, I think I was trying to frighten you when I said that. You didn't frighten me. Horace suggested, it would be nice if you would forget you ever saw me. Let me go. So now both of them are having a conversation. There he said she would call the police, and he said that he would run away after cutting the telephone wires, and that would give him enough time to run away 2 or 3 hours. He would do something so that the woman couldn't telephone 2-3 hours, and then the woman said that this did not frighten her. And then he said, okay, it was fine that if she could forget that she had ever met that man there, and let him go. The voice was suddenly sharp. Why should I? You were going to rob me. If I let you go, you'll only rob someone else. Society must be protected from men like you. Horace smiled. I'm not a man who threatens society. I steal only from those who have a lot of money. I steal for a very good reason, and I hate the thought of prison. She laughed and he begged, thinking that he had persuaded her. Look, I have no right to ask you for anything, but I am desperate. Let me go, and I promise I never would do anything like this again. I really mean it. She was silent, watching him closely. Then she said, you are really afraid of going to prison, aren't you? She came over to him, shaking her head. I've always liked the wrong kind of people. She picked up a silver box from the table and took a cigarette from it. Horace, eager to please her and seeing that she might help him, took off his gloves and gave her the cigarette lighter. So now they were having a conversation. He was trying to convince her so that she may leave her and she may leave him and let him go. And then the woman also was acting very casually, and he told that he was very afraid of going to the prison. So the woman also was acting as if she was interested in the talk, and she posed as if he would do something, because he had asked if I can be of any help. So the woman also acted as if she was thinking over that point, and doing that she took the cigarette in the hand, and just out of courtesy and trying to help her to be very good, he also thought to hand over the lighter, and in doing so he removed the gloves. You'll let me go. He held the lighter towards her. Yes, but only if you'll do something for me. Anything you say. Before we left for London, I promised my husband to take my jewels to our bank, but I left them here in the safe. I want to wear them to a party tonight, so I came down to get them, but... Horace smiled. You've forgotten the numbers to open the safe, haven't you? Yes, replied the young lady. Just leave it to me and you'll have them within an hour, but I'll have to break your safe. Don't worry about that. My husband won't be here for a month, and I'll have the safe mended by that time. So the woman told the man, Horace Denby, that she could let him go only on one condition, that he had to help. And what kind of help she asked for? She told her that before going to London, she had promised the husband she would put the jewels in the bank, but she did not do that, and that night she had to wear the jewels for a party and she had forgotten the numbers. So Horace promised that he could help her out, and just 1 hour he would take, but he will have to break the safe to bring out the jewels from it. And she was quite fine with it. She said it was okay, and before the husband would come back, she would mend the safe. And within an hour, Horace had opened the safe, given her the jewels, and gone happily away. For 2 days, he kept his promise to the kind young lady. On the morning of the 3rd day, however, he thought of the books he wanted, and he knew he would have to look for another safe. But he never got the chance to begin his plan. By noon, a policeman had arrested him for the jewel robbery at Shotover Grange. His fingerprints, for he had opened the safe without gloves, were all over the room, and no one believed him when he said that the wife of the owner of the house had asked him to open the safe for her. The wife herself, a grey-haired, sharp-tongued woman of 60, said that the story was nonsense. Of course, now we understand that the lady in the red wasn't the mistress of the house, because this lady, actual owner of the house, was a 50-year-old woman and grey-haired. 60 years, sorry. Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was in the same profession as he was, who tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. Now, so at the beginning of the chapter only, it was written that you have to set up thieves to catch thieves. If you want to catch a thief, you have to think like a thief only, and you have to be like a thief. And the second one was that there needs to be some honor among thieves also. So when anybody there in the prison talks about honor among thieves, then he really gets angry, because that woman also in the red was a thief, and she didn't have that honor of the thief. She wasn't true about her identity and about, letting him into that trap, and that is why he ended up there in the prison. Now let us see the question answers. Question 1. Did you begin to suspect before the end of the story that the lady was not the person Horace Denby took her to be? If so, at what point did you realize this, and how? So personally, I was not able to suspect that the woman was the one who was not the owner of the house. It was only when the police arrested Horace Denby that I suspected it was not the lady, and that was the point where I understood that the lady had fooled him and outwitted him and trapped him and made him to go into prison. But if you think that you suspected the lady much earlier than the point where I have suspected, then you write your answer along with your justification of it. Okay? What are the subtle ways in which the lady manages to deceive Horace Denby into thinking she is the lady of the house? Why doesn't Horace suspect that something is wrong? See, right from the beginning, from the point where he sneezes because of the bowl of flowers, the way the lady gives the suggestion for hay fever, and the way she stands there with the dog, and the dog also rubs itself against her, the way she was so confident and she was so flawless that he could not make out that she wasn't the lady of the house. She didn't leave a single speck of doubt there in the mind of Horace Denby. The way she delivered the dialogues, the way she was confident, the way she was moving there in the house and talking about the things there in the house, it did not give any suspicion in the mind of Horace Denby that she was not the owner of the house. And also the dog was behaving in such a friendly manner that he could not suspect her not to be the owner of the house. Third question. Horace Denby was good and respectable, but not completely honest. Why do you think this description is apt for Horace? Why can't he be categorized as a typical thief? Now see, Horace Denby was good and respectable because he was not going and doing the act of theft there every now and then and at everybody's place. He was good and respectable. He was into the business of locks and safes. He had 2 assistants also. He lived with a housekeeper there, and he was leading a very good life. He only stole once a year. and that also at the place of a very rich person. And that amount he would use only to buy rare and expensive things, and he wouldn't go hurting people and burglaring every nook and corner of the city. He didn't do that. He studied well, and only the rich people he did. So in a way, he was not a typical thief, and he led a good and respectable life also. So this is the most apt description of Horace Denby. Next question. Horace Denby was a meticulous planner. Meticulous is one who was very prompt with the work and who doesn't leave any error in the work. But still he faltered, still he committed some mistakes. So where did he go wrong and why? See, he studied so well, the whole of the house, the wiring, the servants coming, going, the dog, everything he did so well. And how could he not have seen the pictures of the owner of the house? So he had not seen that. So that was the place where he faltered. He did not know who were the actual owners of the house. He knew everything about the house but did not know about the owners, and that is why he thought that a woman in the red to be the owner of the house, and from there only the whole of the mistake began, and that is why he was trapped. Now these two questions are your homework, because you have to provoke your thoughts, and you have to write about what do you think regarding these questions. If you think Horace Denby was unfairly punished, and if it is right to do wrong if the things are done for a good purpose, so what do you think? What I think I can write. Now what you think about these, you have to write this two questions. And stories have always mesmerized children for ages and ages. And this also was a story, and I shall meet you in the next video also with another story of another writer. Till then, stay home, stay safe.